Hello, everybody. So my name is Fabio Ciaravella, and I'm presenting our project, Architecture of Shame. The project was born in 2018, actually before, but in the context, in the environment of Matera 2019 European Capital of Culture. So we call it a psychoanalytic group session for European architecture, because it is about our methodology. And after I will explain, I will be more clear about why this subtitle. So the really simple question, which is on the beginning of our project, is what about architecture and shame? Of course, it's a really simple question, but at the same time, it's quite challenging. It's simple because architecture and shame are two parts of our everyday life. And the question, alone and together, of course, but everybody can answer to this question. So the question reminds us that architecture is something that belongs to everybody, and also the architecture and discussion belongs to everybody. And we can do this question in a really positive way. I know that the really hard thing to do about architecture and shame is to be not polemic, is to use architecture in a different way, as a tool to discuss. And we can do that because we are coming from Matera. And of course, very few of you probably know that Matera in 1950s has been called the shame of Italy. And it has been called the shame of Italy because of its architecture, because people were living mainly into caves, together with animals, and in a pre-modern architecture. But the fact is that nobody knows who first said shame. So, if you ask to the Materans, to the people that have been writing a historical book about the Matera case study, there are divergent opinions. Someone say that has been De Gasperi, the prime minister at the time. Some other says that was Togliatti. No, nobody knows. Actually, some others says that was the newspapers, and some others says that was Nitti, who was another representative in the parliament. But the fact is that since when Matera has been called the shame of Italy, people have been moved from those houses to other social houses that have been built for this reason. The fact demonstrates that shame can be a tool. The fact is, how do we use this tool? And the fact that we can use it for a positive way is because in 1993, 43 years after this declaration, UNESCO recognized the same places as a World Heritage. The same places. So the point is how it has been possible. Because the problem is exactly that by recognizing that Matera was a World Heritage, we changed our perspective. First, we were seeing only poverty, and after, we discovered a treasure. And after this recognition, Matera became European Capital of Culture for many reasons, but maybe one of the most important is because it created a collective cultural project that is the same of the cultural project that the city is representing. And architectural shame was born exactly in this moment, when we were asking to ourselves, why Matera, this little city, can be the European capital of capital of culture for Europe. And this is because Matera can allow us to share these two simple questions. The first question is, how many places do we perceive today as a shame, tomorrow can be recognized as a places of value? How many places, architectures, cities, designs, objects, anything, we don't understand. And we need an evolution, a social evolution, a social and cultural evolution to understand them better. And on the contrary, how many places do we live in the absolute normality today, every day, that they are so contrary to our values that should be the shame of Europe? We have been asking these two questions in Europe for 2 years. And we brought these two questions that Matera can raise in Europe, asking simply, what is the relationship about architecture, shame, and Europe? Of course, it's hard to say, and many of you today has been quite saying something that can be related with our project. But let's analyze some of these cases. Heritage. Okay, Europe today is filled of bulky traces. We are filled of architecture that are coming from totalitarian regimes. How do we perceive them? Are they shame or not? Are they heritage or not? Do we refuse them or not? Strategies, how architecture is touching our development strategies. Today, one of the most visible strategies in Europe is to build walls. Today, we know that one shape of architecture is to build walls. Is that architecture of shame? Are we represented by those architecture? Is that the contemporary Europe? Progress. How do we perceive progress for Europe? The presentation before me said that Italy is filled of unfinished work, but it's a problem for Europe. Let's think only about Spain, or there are many other unfinished buildings in the post-communist and socialist part of Europe. How do we perceive them in relationship with progress? Are they a shame or are not? So the point is that let's talk about shame. Not be ashamed about those architecture, but only share our points of view. We have been trying to create what Michael Herzfeld, an anthropologist, called cultural intimacy. He says that people can be joined not only by positive values, but especially sometimes by sharing something they are embarrassed about. And when they do that, when they share a sort of embarrassment and they understand that they should be not ashamed at all, in this moment we can create the first part of a cultural and social evolution. When we recognize, when we change our perspective, we can change our point of view, and we do a step forward. But Europe is so diverse, is so young, and we need to talk about shame. Because what was shame in the Catholic perspective have to be flipped. And we have to use, in the same way in which De Gasperi and Togliatti have been talking about shame, but for us, to celebrate shame. To celebrate shame because of we can understand through shame what we are today. This is our method. We do this process by research made by ourselves and asking to important and people that are doing works about some topics, triggering dialogues in terms of open up the discussion with different people and people that are not only architects, and actions. After doing that, we act when we can. We try to act a change. We try to act in a place of shame. Our outcome in a long term is to build a documentation center about relationship in architecture and shame, because this can allow us to understand contemporary Europe from a bottom-up perspective. So our invitation is to lay on our couch and start to talk about shame.